Okay. Again, thank you to Rabbi Rosenberg for coming and taking this picture, this video. Appreciate it very much. As you can see, we're in the backyard, our backyard, and it's a very natural setting. So you may see some mulch in the back of the video, but that's okay. It's part of nature. We've learned to live outside now. Anyway, this week's parsha, which is Pinchas. Next week's parsha will be a double parsha again, and this is the second to last parsha of the book. Pinchas begins. Last week's parsha ended with Pinchas committing something that looked like murder. There was the prince of Shimon and a princess of Midian were having an affair, shall we say, in a tent in front of everybody. Pinchas went in and he acted as a kanoi, as a zealot, and the halacha is that kanoim pogimbo, someone who acts in his zealousness for the honor of God, is allowed to do this. Pinchas went and he killed the two of them while they were in the middle of the act of inappropriate action, shall we say, and he killed them both. And this week's parsha begins from that point on. Parsha begins with the words Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. Pinchas was the son of Elazar and the grandson of Aaron. So Rashi and Chazal asked the question: Why does the Torah tell us who the grandfather of Pinchas was? Generally, Torah just tells us the person and his father's name. If it tells us the grandfather, there's a message in that. So what is the message? So it seems that the people were complaining about Pinchas. They said, what right did he have to do to commit such a terrible act? And then they said, you know why he did that? Because he's descendant from his grandfather on his mother's side, is Putiel. Putiel was Yitro, but Yitro at one time was a priest for idolatry. He used to slaughter animals to sacrifice them to idolatry. So they said that's where he got this bad characteristic, this terrible characteristic of being a murderer from his grandfather on that side. So therefore, the Torah says, no, he's also the grandson of Aaron. Aaron is Ohev Shalom, Rodev Shalom. He's a lover of peace. He pursues peace. He also has that characteristic. So the Ksav Sofer asked the question. He asked, how does that answer what the people were saying? After all, it's good. He's the son of Aaron, but he's the grandson of Aaron, but he's also the grandson of Putiel. So maybe that's the characteristic that he showed. He didn't show the characteristic of Aaron of love peace and pursue peace. He used a violent act. So that's the characteristic of Putiel. So therefore, just because you tell me that he's a grandson of Aaron, that doesn't answer my question. The people still had a valid complaint. Answers the Ksav Sofer that no, he really was the grandson of Aaron, and that's what the Torah is telling me. He is a kind person. He's a gentle person. Violence is the furthest thing from him. But why did he do this? Because he knew that this was what the action was needed. He had to overcome his own natural tendency, his own natural personality in order to do this. This was not easy, but he did it because he felt that this is what God wanted at this point in time. And therefore he overcame that personality in order to be able to do something like this. And that's why he's called Ben Aaron, to let you know that's really his personality, but he overcame it and became like Putiel from the other side, or would do that. So I want to share a story with you about Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, this is a story I heard from Rabbi Stuhlberger. Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, many stories. He was a great storyteller while he used to strum his guitar and while he, and just plain stories. But it's interesting, I told the famous story about Rabbi Yosel, the Holy Miser. That's the most famous story, and that Shlomo Carlebach added on to that famous story. But this is a story about Carlebach and that happened to him. It happened to be that once he was on a plane, and the stewardess was very, very nice, which this was many years ago. Rabbi Carlebach has already gone, I don't know what, about 25 years probably, but something like that. So this happened many years ago, obviously. And it was a time when I guess they were still serving meals on the plane and things like that. But this particular stewardess, she was very, very nice. And he was really impressed with her. So towards the end of the flight, he decided to get up and thank her personally. So he goes to the back, to the galley, and he sees her, and she's davening mincha. And so he's blown away by that, because he said, I never saw a religious stewardess or steward on the plane, and not only that, but here she is, a girl, and she's davening mincha. So after she was finished, he came over and he thanked her, and he said, I'm really impressed that you were davening mincha. That was really something. So she said, well, I'm a convert to Judaism, and I really am trying to do everything right. He said, congratulations, I wish you well. Everything go well for you. So she sees he's a nice rabbi, and people are comfortable with Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, and they spill their guts to him, actually. So she tells him that I'm really falling in love with this Jewish fellow, and I'm converting not because to marry him, because I really like Judaism, and it's something I wanted to do. But his parents said that they will not allow him to marry someone who was not Jewish. And I've tried and tried, and my parents tried, and they just won't allow it. So Rabbi Carlebach says to her, well, give me your number. I'll call your parents. Let me see what I can. Excuse me. Give me the number of the fellow that you want to marry, and I'll speak to the parents. So he gets a number. When he gets off the plane, sells in, and he calls them, and he tells them, I saw your daughter. I saw your son's girlfriend that they want to get married, and she looks like a very fine person. And the father says, no, absolutely not. He says, we are survivors of the Holocaust. We don't keep much, but one thing's for sure. I'm not letting my son marry someone who is a non-Jew. I saw what the non-Jews did to us in Poland and in Germany. Absolutely not. I'm not allowing it. And he said, thank you very much, Rabbi, but that's it, and goodbye. And he hung up on her. So Rabbi Carlebach calls up the girl to let her know what happened. And it happens to be the girl's father answers the phone. And so Rabbi Carlebach says to the girl's father, well, your daughter, I know she's converted, but I want to tell you, I'm so impressed with her character and everything. And then he says, and I spoke to the parents of the boy that she would like to marry, and the father of the girl says, no, I don't want her to marry him either. If they've rejected my daughter, I don't want my daughter to have anything to do with somebody who's rejected her. That's it, finished, that's it. He said, thank you very much, and that's it. So Rabbi Carlebach gets off the phone, and he says, it's looks like a lost situation, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to try. I'm going to keep trying. So he calls up the father of the boy again, and he says, can I just come over to visit? Let me just come over to visit. I'm Shlomo Carlebach. Perhaps you've heard of me. I've written a few songs in my life. Maybe can I come over? So he says, all right, Rabbi Carlebach, I have heard of you. Okay. So he comes over and he talks to him. He talks to him, and he discovers that they were religious before the Holocaust, but after the Holocaust they said they don't have anything with God. But he said, I don't want my son to marry a non-Jewish girl. So he said, well, I tell you, she may be a convert, but she's really a nice girl. How about if I arrange a meeting for you and her parents? Meet them. What have you got to lose? So he said, well, okay, I'll try it. So now he said, but hold on, now I got to call her parents and make sure. So he calls the parents and he says, I've spoken to the boy's parents. I think they're softening. How about if and they agree to meet you? Would you be willing to meet them? I'll rent a room in a hotel. We'll all meet there. We'll have we'll have a little snack, and we'll talk and see what happens. So, okay, so he says, okay. He says, I'll get there. So it happens to be that he and the girl and their daughter get to the room first. And they're waiting a few minutes, and there's a knock on the door. So the father of the girl goes to open the door. He opens the door, and he yells out, Reuven? And the father of the boy says, Yankel? They look at each other, and they remember each other. They were chavrusas, they were study partners in the yeshiva before the war. And not only that, but they had made up that they said, when we get married, we have children, if you have a boy and I have a girl, we have the other opposite gender, we're going to make a shidduch between them. And that's exactly what happened. Kachoya. They made a shidduch, they got married, and Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach was really the shadchan, what he did. The reason I'm pointing out this story is because Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach is a very nice person. He was a very kind, soft person. That's why people loved him so much. And he wasn't the kind of person who pushed too much. He just, for whatever reason, he went against his own nature to push this shidduch. And you can see what the outcome is. And that's sometimes we have to do that. We happen to be of a certain temperament, a certain personality, and sometimes we have to go against our personality in order to be able to do what's really the right thing. Because many times we'll say, well, that's not me, and maybe I should do that, but it's not me. Can't say that. If that's what should be done, then you have to overcome your own personality in order to be able to do the right thing as well. I wish everyone Shabbat Shalom. I hope everyone had a meaningful fast on Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, and we'll let you know information about Tisha B'Av when it arises. Shabbat Shalom.